Welcome. Tonight, after over 2 decades of General Sani Abacha's death, Nigeria and the United States signed agreements for repatriation of fresh $23.4 million. Independent National Electoral Commission presses for enhanced electoral laws, pleads with National Assembly to pass Electoral Offences Bill to check fraud. Tragic accident as truck carrying unlatched container falls on a commercial bus on Ondo-Ore Highway, kills 6 passengers.
Business news tonight. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council reports over $2.6 billion earned from non-oil exports in the first half of the year.
And on sports news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari's administration vows to resist any attempt to undermine football administration as he receives a 10-year master plan submitted by the Minister of Sports, Mr. Sunday Dare.
And from Abuja, House of Representatives continues probe on the $33 million zero-power purchase agreement, summons ministers of power and finance, as well as heads of Bureau of Public Procurement, Niger Delta Power Holding Company, and other agencies.
International news from London. The US State Department is warning that Russia is planning on launching fresh attacks against civilian infrastructure and government buildings in Ukraine.
We begin with electoral matters. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, is calling for the arrest and prosecution of high-profile sponsors of electoral offences. Speaking at a public hearing organised by the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters on a bill to establish the National Electoral Offences Commission, Professor Yakubu says the perpetrators of electoral offences may not be the beneficiaries of the crime, hence the need to fish out those behind them. Our correspondent Linda Akigwe reports.
Just like the Senate, the House of Representatives is working on the legislation to establish the National Electoral Offences Commission, and this gathering is to get the input of major stakeholders on the bill. The establishment of the National Electoral Offences Commission is part of the reforms of Nigeria's electoral laws by Parliament intended to enable free, fair and credible elections. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission believes that reforming the country's electoral process cannot be complete without effective sanctions on electoral offenders, a task he says is overburdening the commission.
INEC is saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenders under the Electoral Act. This has been very challenging for the commission. For instance, since the 2015 general election, 125 cases of electoral offenses were filed in various courts, out of which 60 convictions have so far been secured. So I recommend the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission.
He stresses that INEC would like to see more successful prosecution of sponsors of electoral offences.
The ballot box snatcher is unlikely to be a beneficiary of the election. The person who gives money at the polling unit is unlikely to be a beneficiary of the election. And these shenanigans will not stop until we get to their sponsors, the high-profile sponsors of these violations, and make an example out of them.
However, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission opposes the establishment of a separate commission to investigate and prosecute electoral offenders in the country.
Section 145 of the Electoral Act also have already given power, prosecutorial power, to the INEC to prosecute the criminal offences. So it's our position that there's no need to create an agency solely for the purpose of investigating and prosecuting electoral offences, most especially when our electoral processes is seasonal in nature.
The House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters is expected to collate the views expressed at this public hearing and prepare a report for the lower chamber. If passed, the bill will be harmonized with the legislation already approved in the Senate. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
To some mainstream politics now. As efforts to resolve the internal wranglings in the People's Democratic Party continue, the chairman of the party's Board of Trustees, Senator Wali Jibrin, is restating his opposition to the party having to produce the presidential candidate, national chairman and BOT chairman from the north ahead of the 2023 presidential elections. Senator Walid, who was reacting to criticisms of his position, explains in a statement that PDP is a democratic and national party that caters for all Nigerians and not sectional. He says, "I must say the truth and nothing but the truth. No matter any criticism, I don't fear anyone but God and true agenda of our party." According to him, he is one of the members that remained in the PDP since its inception in 1998, and the BOT is eagerly awaiting the reports of the party's Reconciliation Committee to thoroughly discuss it and inform the public accordingly. The PDP has been battling an internal dispute arising from the emergence of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as its 2023 presidential candidate, with some members calling for the resignation of the national chairman, Senator Iyocha Ayu. In the meantime, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party has visited the leader of Afenifere, a pan-Yoruba socio-political organization, Ayo Adibanjo, in Lagos. Mr. Obi made this known in a tweet saying that he was accompanied on the visit to the leaders of the Labour Party. The tweet reads, presently visiting Pa Ayo Adibanjo and members of the South and Middle Belt Leadership Forum. The national leaders of the Labour Party and other stakeholders are here too. The Afenifere leader had endorsed Mr. Obi, saying the Southeast deserves to be given a chance to lead the country and that Mr. Obi has good track records to govern well. In tackling the many security breaches bedeviling the country, the Labour Party will account for every square mile of the Federation's landmass by embarking on massive recruitment into the police force. The party's vice presidential candidate, Mr. Yusuf Baba Ahmed, stated the party's position earlier today during an appearance in our program Sunrise Daily, where he also advocated for more accountability in the management of security votes.
Training, welfare, intelligence, and networking. These are what we're going to work for. And the combination of all these things, we will use to account for every square meter of Nigeria, be it Sambisa, be it 7 local governments in Kaduna, be it 4 local governments in Niger State, be it 7 local governments in Zamfara or everywhere in Nigeria. You will never come out and attack any place of worship and escape into thin air. It will never happen. Decisions governors or anybody for that matter in an executive office takes, they are very delicate, very, very difficult decisions to make. Some of them really, really are hard to back up. But then it gives no right for anyone to pocket security funds or security votes.
The biggest obstacle.
On the issue of fuel subsidies, Senator Baba Ahmed says his party frowns on what he describes as foul play in the disbursement of the funds, but did not make a categorical statement on whether his party will retain the policy should it win the presidential election come 2023.
Now, this is not party position for now, and this may not be the position of my principal. I think there is no need for it because there are many other ways of compensating Nigerians. I'm always on the welfare side. I'm on the side of waste less in procurement. Procure more efficiently and then remunerate better, far better. By the time you remunerate better, you would have more than compensated for the withdrawal of subsidy.
And to security now, 2 soldiers linked to the murder of Islamic cleric Sheikh Goni Aissami Gashua last Saturday along Gashua Kano Road in Yobe State have been paraded for homicide by the police command alongside 3 other suspects. Lance Corporal John Gabriel and Lance Corporal Adamu Gideon, both of 241 Rees Battalion in Guru Yobe State, were said to have shot and killed Sheikh Aissami after giving them a lift in his car. The principal suspect, Lance Corporal Gabriel, admitted to the crime as he and the police spokesman in the state, DSP Dungus Abdul Karim, narrated how it all played out.
One Sheikh Goni Aissami, prominent Islamic scholar based in Gashua, who was traveling along from Kano to Gashua in his Honda Accord car with registration number KBT 31 AE, arrived at the military checkpoint at Nguru. Lance Corporal John Gabriel requested the Islamic cleric to offer him a lift to Jaji Maji, which he obliged. While driving, before reaching Jaji Maji town, the assailant asked him to park, that there was an unusual sound. However, Nemesis caught up with the culprit when a passerby going to his farm early in the morning sighted a corpse, a vehicle, and some people, then alerted the police from Judge Maji, who promptly mobilized and raced down to the scene.
When he's checking the under of the vehicle, that's when, because even me, I drop, that's where I now remove my own rifle, and I now remove my magazine and fix. So I now asked him to, what of the back tire? Did you check the back tire or we should just go? He said, let him check the back tire. So as he's trying to cross over to the back tire through the passenger side, that's where I removed my rifle and I pointed at him. He now asked me, what have I done to you? What have I done? I said, you don't do anything. Did you want to kill me? I said, oh, no, I don't want to kill you. He kept quiet. So I now fired warning shot. I fired up, thinking that it will scare him so that he will run away. At that spot now, the car is still steaming. It's not off. The car is still steaming. The car is not off yet. So when I fired a warning shot, thinking that the man will run away, but the man did not run away. So at that spot now, when he want to go, when the man want to run because of the first shot, when he want to run away and enter a vehicle, I now fired a second shot on his arm.
President Muhammadu Buhari has strongly condemned what he calls the unprovoked and cold-blooded murder of a Yobe State-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Goni Aissami by a soldier he had offered a lift. In a statement by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, the president said, "This barbaric murder of a compassionate man by a soldier he had assisted has no place in our training as soldiers, and it negates the entire ethos of military life, which is anchored on discipline and respect for the sanctity of innocent lives. According to him, by our training, we are guided by a code of conduct that frowns on this kind of reckless and criminal act. It is not in our character and training to put innocent citizens in harm's way." While expressing his personal outrage as the commander-in-chief by this criminal and wicked act by a law enforcement official trained to protect life, President Buhari calls on military authorities to punish the perpetrators of these heinous crimes without delay and flush out other elements with such criminal tendencies. In part 2, after the break, Serap, Nigerian Guild of Editors, approached the courts over shutting down of 53 broadcast stations. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. After over 2 decades of General Sani Abacha's death, Nigeria and the United States sign agreement for repatriation of fresh $23.4 million loot. Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) presses for enhanced electoral laws, pleads with National Assembly to pass Electoral Offences Bill to check fraud. Tragic accident, a truck carrying on latch container falls on a commercial bus on Ondo-Ore Highway, kills 6 passengers. And U.S. State Department alerts of possible Russia attacks against civilian infrastructure and government buildings ahead of Ukraine's Independence Day. To our top story today. Over 20 years after the death of former head of state General Sani Abacha, large sums of money he stashed in various banks overseas are still being traced and returned to the country. The latest is over $23 million, which the Nigerian government has signed an agreement with the government of the United States for its repatriation back home. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, signed on behalf of the federal government, while the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, signed on behalf of the United States government. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
The United States of America has again agreed to return another fund looted by former head of state, late General Sani Abacha, and the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, is meeting the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mrs. Mary Beth Leonard, for the execution of the agreement. This agreement is for the repatriation of over $23.4 million, and according to Mr. Malami, it is a result of painstaking efforts, as he gives a breakdown of what the funds will be used for.
The Federal Republic of Nigeria and the USA have negotiated and finalized the terms of the asset return agreement, which we are here this afternoon to execute. It is worthy of note that in line with the term of the agreement, Mr. President has already approved that the funds be utilized for the ongoing Presidential Development Infrastructural Funds projects, namely Abuja-Kano Road, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the second Niger Bridge, under the supervision of Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, NSIA.
This is not the first recovery the Nigerian government will be making of the assets looted by the former military leader, late General Sani Abacha. According to Transparency Information Technology Initiative, the federal government of Nigeria has between 1998 and 2020 recovered a total of $3.6 billion looted by the former military leader. Between 1998 and 2007, over $2 billion was recovered from Switzerland and the United Kingdom, while between 2008 and 2015, over $1.5 billion was recovered from both Switzerland and Liechtenstein. Under the current administration, the sum of $322 million was repatriated from Switzerland in 2018, while the sum of $311 million was repatriated by the United States government and the bailiwick of Jersey in 2020. In May this year, the National Crime Agency in the UK says it also recovered over $23.4 million believed to have been siphoned out of Nigeria by the former head of state, late General Sani Abacha. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria also gives an account of what her country has also returned to Nigeria, as she assures of the U.S. government's support in fighting corruption in Nigeria.
Combined with the $311.7 million the United States seized and repatriated with the assistance of the bailiwick of Jersey and the government of Nigeria in 2020, this repatriation brings the total amount of funds repatriated in this case by the United States to more than $334.7 million.
To seal the agreement, both countries append their signatures to the documents.
Okay, sorry.
The late General Sani Abacha is not the only Nigerian who has been indicted of siphoning money belonging to the country. And as the Nigerian government celebrates this latest recovery, the citizens are expecting to see accountability and judicious utilization of the funds so far recovered. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And to legal matters, a federal high court sitting in Abuja has nullified the ratification of the suspension of the General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mrs. Joyce Odua, by the National Executive Council of the association. The ratification was voided and set aside by the court on the ground that the action was an affront to the rule of law and violation of court proceedings in the matter. Ruling in an application filed and argued by Mr. Ayotunde Ogunleye on behalf of the plaintiff, Justice Ahmed held that the NBA's NEC, which gave legal effect to the suspension of the plaintiff, acted in bad faith. The judge agreed with Mr. Ogunleye that the ratification ought not to have been carried out by the NEC in view of the pendency of a suit challenging the suspension in the first instance. The NBA NEC had on August the 21st, 2022, upheld the suspension of Odua as General Secretary by the executive members, despite the fact that she was already in court challenging the decision. In another legal matter, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the Nigerian Guild of Editors have filed a lawsuit against the President and the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, over what they describe as the arbitrary use of the NBC Act and the Broadcasting Code to threaten, revoke and shut down 53 broadcast stations in the country for allegedly failing to renew their licenses. In a statement by SERAP's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, the organization says the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Ahmed, is joined in the suit as defendant. In the suit filed today at the Federal High Courts in Lagos, SERAP and the Guild of Editors are asking the court to determine whether Section 10, Section A of the third schedule to the National Broadcasting Act used by the NBC is not inconsistent and incompatible with the freedom of expression and access to information. While recognizing the mandates of the NBC to regulate broadcasting, the plaintiffs say they also believe that the exercise of such mandates, including renewals or revocation of licenses, must follow the thresholds and guidelines set by the right to freedom of expression. Let's head now to Abuja, where my colleague Linda Kigwe is standing by with more stories. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. We begin with the National Assembly. As part of the investigation into the $33 million Azura Power Purchase Agreement, the House of Representatives Committee on Finance has invited the Ministers of Power and Finance to answer questions on the matter. Others invited also are heads of the Bureau of Public Procurement, Niger Delta Power Holding Company, Nigeria Bulk Electricity Transmission Company of Nigeria, and Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. Speaking at the resumed hearing on the power plant, the chairman of the House Committee on Finance, Mr. James Faliki, says government officials are expected to explain their role in the power deal. The challenges facing Nigeria can be traced to a trust deficit and the absence of national integration, which must be addressed by improving citizen engagement with government. This was the position of multiple speakers at the opening ceremony of the Citizen Summit for National Integration, Peace and Security in Abuja. The two-day summit, which is convened by the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, is built to mend relations. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
Reopening conversations and rebuilding trust. That's the overwhelming sentiment at this summit organized by the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. For 2 days, these participants from all walks of life will be creating a non-partisan process for national reconciliation. And according to the president of the institute, organized by the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, for 2 days, these participants from all walks of life will be creating a non-partisan process for national reconciliation. And according to the president of the institute, a citizen charter focused on national development will be born out of the conversations to be had here.
For the country to move forward,
we must change the paradigm on how we engage the citizens and the techniques of dialogue. Those in leadership positions must learn modern art of citizens' engagement, and the people must, on the other hand, appreciate the fact that the task of nation building is a collective responsibility in which the citizens too have great roles to play.
Delivering her keynote address, the chairperson of the Citizens Summit 2022 and chairperson Access Bank Nigeria PLC, Mrs. Dere Awoshika, says Nigeria's challenges are rooted in political and economic imperialism, which can only be tackled by national integration.
National integration has become a topic that continues to swirl on the tongues of government, not just today. With national leaders striving to attain a smooth administration of distinct languages, ethnicity, religion, and culture that have been knitted together to identify as a nation.
President Muhammadu Buhari is represented at the summit by the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed. He describes himself as the nation's favorite whipping boy and brings another dimension to the conversation. He insists that fake news and misinformation trigger the insecurity faced in most parts of the country.
Fake news and misinformation are making words insecurity, feeling falling apprehension among the citizens and demoralizing security agents. We must take the fight to terrorists and demonstrate that there is no hiding place for them within the borders of our country.
The conversations around Nigeria's unity continue across the country, especially as Nigeria battles so many prevailing situations that are threatening that particular unity. The participants at today's event have identified national integration and building trust among Nigerian people and between the people and government as a way of solving the problems facing the country. Each participant at today's summit is to go home as an ambassador of the message of unity in diversity. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
6 people have been confirmed dead after a container conveyed by a truck fell on a passenger bus along Ondo-Ore Expressway at about noon today. According to officials of the Federal Road Safety Corps in Ondo State, the remaining 3 passengers sustained injuries and have been taken to the General Hospital Ore for medical treatment. The federal government is appealing to traditional rulers to help champion the advocacy for vaccines uptake, as well as a need for state governments to invest in primary healthcare services to fast-track the national target for an improved maternal and child health. This appeal is coming from the Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Hanire, at a meeting in Abuja to review the activities of the Southwest Traditional Leaders Committee on National Primary Healthcare Delivery. The committee was inaugurated last year to mobilize the support of traditional rulers for improved primary healthcare delivery in the region.
The Ooni of Ife arrived at the venue of the Southwest Traditional Leaders Committee meeting in Abuja to review the outcomes of the committee's efforts in primary healthcare delivery since its inauguration a year ago. The Southwest Traditional Leaders Committee was commissioned in 2021 by the Ministry of Health to help the federal government mobilize grassroots support for vaccines uptake.
He is a man who His Imperial Majesty likes to address.
Beyond the advocacy, the Ministry of Health also wants traditional rulers to lead a campaign for investment in primary healthcare services.
For us to make progress in primary healthcare, we need the right complement of human resources. We need the right complement of infrastructure. We need your advocacy to the governors in those meetings that you have to improve the numbers of qualified health workers that are in the primary healthcare centers.
I also want to use the opportunity to humbly remind our royal fathers to continue with the sensitization of the public, again, as I said earlier, on education and on healthcare, and in healthcare on the benefits of immunization and then the primary healthcare system.
Reports by the Ministry of Health show an optimal performance in routine immunization among 3 southwestern states, namely Lagos, Ekiti, and Osun. The report also reveals a shortage in the number of skilled health workers in the region, a challenge the monarchs say they will help to address.
Being able to put ourselves together, and we traditional rulers, we don't want to leave everything to government to be doing. We have that fiduciary role and responsibility to take care of our people. It's important, and we're using the primary health care platform to reach out to them. And so far, so good. The MOUs is working, and we are not talking the talk, but we are walking the walk.
Traditional rulers are major partners with the government as grassroots mobilizers for vaccination against child killer diseases. And government is hoping that this approach will deliver improved health services to ordinary Nigerians. That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Linda. Looking lovely in pink. We continue here in Lagos, where the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, has reacted to the reports regarding the resignation of some soldiers. The Army Chief says any serviceman can make a request to leave or resign if they want to move on to other endeavors of life. Lieutenant General Yahya, who spoke on the sidelines of the 23rd Combat Service Support Training Week in Lagos, says joining the military is voluntary. He says you can apply to leave, but such request is reviewed and granted based on the merits of the case.
Now, to say a soldier resigned due to pressure, does that make sense? For a Nigerian army soldier, a professional soldier that has proved his worth all across the globe, that because the pressure has resigned, it doesn't make sense. Our job is designed to have pressure, and we are trained all across to have pressures. But the army, the military, and other services also have their terms and conditions of service. There's what is called harmonized terms and conditions of service officers, terms and conditions of service soldiers, ratings, and airmen, where all the terms and conditions are there. When you join the army, it's voluntary, and now there are also conditions at which, when you want to do other things also, you can do. It's not conscription that you are kept here, you must remain. No. You fulfill certain criteria. In other realms, even in the civil, when you go, for example, for a certain course, you are bonded by a certain period. You cannot leave until after that. In the army, we have that also. For you to now maybe leave the army and do other things, there is a period. It's contained in our books. And now you apply, stating the reasons you want to. And now they are considered and they are granted. It's not resignation. People have something else they feel they want to do. They came here to serve, and they have served and contribute their own quota. Now it's time for them, they feel, to do other things. They have other reasons.
Let's head over to Kogi, where the state government is promising residents of adequate protection of their rights through prompt implementation of the report and recommendations on the NSAS protest that rocked the nation in October 2020. This assurance is coming from the secretary to the state government, Mrs. Folashade Ayoade, who says the protection of people's rights remains sacrosanct. She was speaking in Lokoja while receiving the report of the committee set up by the state government to look into the remote causes of the protest in the state.
The governor of Kogi State had on October the 10th, 2020, directed the setting up of a Human Rights Special Intervention Group under the Public Defender and Citizens' Rights Commission to receive and resolve complaints from the public. Following the governor's directive, the Public Defender and Citizens' Rights Commission in the state constituted an 11-man committee with members drawn from the human rights community. Having examined petitions from persons who were victims of the activities of law enforcement agencies and vigilantes, members of the committee converged on the banquet hall of Government House, Lokoja, to submit its report to the state government for the purpose of implementation. The State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice explains that the findings of the committee will assist the state government in addressing the relevant issues that caused the protest, while the acting Chief Judge commended Governor Yahaya Bello for his effort in ensuring that justice is done without fear or favor to all residents of the state.
At the end of the day, they came up with a fantastic report, which I have no doubt in my mind that will assist the state greatly.
We really want to appreciate our governor, His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Bello, who is not a leader of jungle people, a leader of civilized people.
Presenting the report to the representative of the governor, the Director General of the PDCRC says 12 petitions were received, out of which 6 were contentious.
We were able to successfully conclude 12 of such cases, and of such 12 cases, 7 persons who has charges of culpable homicide punishable with death, culpable homicide not punishable with death, and armed robbery had their liberties restored at no cost from them or any member of their family.
The Secretary to the State Government, who received the report before reading the speech of Governor Yahaya Bello, says the state government will not relent in its effort to position the commission to enable it deliver its mandate to vulnerable and indigent residents free of charge.
Every recommendation therein will be well noted and carried out by His Excellency, because he's a governor that believes so much in human rights and justice. He believes so much in the fact that people must be treated with justice.
As the people await the implementation of the committee's report, residents say they are optimistic that the state government will match words with action.
The Federal Ministry of Environment says it is determined to explore all options driven by domestic realities in line with global benchmarks in ensuring the development of a scheme that adds value to the environment and generates jobs. According to the Minister for Environment, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi, collective investment in addressing climate change will provide immense dividends for the global economy. The minister stated this while flagging off the development of Nigeria's emissions trading framework in the nation's capital.
Very much welcome. Also, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the government demonstrated political will with the signing of the National Climate Change Act, intended to support government's net zero agenda. As you may all be aware, operationalization of this act started with the appointment of the pioneer Director General of the Climate Change Council. The government is further taking the lead on the establishment of a trading scheme with legal framework provided in the Climate Change Act of 2021 for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions through a cap and trade-based emissions trading schemes to meet the net zero target from today. We should all be reminded that a collective investment in addressing climate change will eventually provide immense dividends for the global economy, alongside the economic co-benefits that come with it. Nigeria realizes that its efforts on carbon management policy stands to gain from aligning our national emissions planning to international mechanisms such as emissions trading scheme.
In other stories, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Pantami, has read the Rights Act to members of the boards of the National Identity Management Commission, Nigeria Postal Service, and the National Information Technology Development Agency, warning them against insubordination. The minister emphasized the need for the members to complement the efforts of the management team of the parastatals in line with the act establishing the agencies. He was speaking in Abuja while inaugurating the governing boards of the parastatals, urging them to obey government directives as the ministry will not tolerate anything to the contrary. Let's head over for some business news now. Here's Anne Wilder. Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The federal government has recorded a total of over $2.6 billion worth of non-oil export between January 2022 to June this year. Addressing newsmen in Abuja, the executive director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, Ezra Iyakusak, explains that the figure represents an increase of 62% of what was achieved in the first half of 2021, making the figure the highest since 2018.
The success story can be seen from what we just read. We're talking of we launched our Export Power campaign in February. We're talking of 6 months. In 6 months, we're recording this. And like I said, these figures are not manufactured by NEPC. These are figures that we collected from or were submitted to us by the various pre-shipment inspection agents that are in charge of inspecting all non-oil goods, determining the value and destination of those non-oil goods. So we collected, they sent us the figures, and by the time we did our computation and this, we arrived at the fact that non-oil export, volume and value of non-oil export rose the highest in the past 5 years. That's from 2018 to date. The records are there for everyone to see.
Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo says the collaboration between the federal government and the private sector will ensure efficient implementation of infrastructure projects across the country. The Vice President made this known today at the inauguration of the National Council on Infrastructure. According to him, the council was established to provide policy direction and drive synergy between the public and private sectors to enhance the implementation of the National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan. The National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan seeks to raise the country's infrastructure stock to at least 70% by the year 2043. Ghana and 7 other countries, including Kenya, Egypt and Cameroon, have agreed to begin actual trading among themselves under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This will be the first time since the agreement was signed about 2 years ago. Speaking at the Export Trading Company seminar by the Africa Export-Import Bank, the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Herbert Krapa, said that this will be a historic move for the continent. It also expects that other member nations will emulate this. And China has stated that it will forgive 23 interest-free loans to 17 African countries, and it will also provide food assistance to the struggling nations. This was disclosed by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who announced the cancellations in the meeting at the Forum on the China-Africa Cooperation. The minister failed to specify which countries owed the money or the amount of the loans which it claimed had matured at the end of last year. It can be recalled that most African countries are still struggling with the rising debt levels as rising energy costs and inflation continue to weigh on economic growth. And we head to the market now, where intense profit-taking continued. The market value fell today further by over 420 billion naira. Ladi Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, day 2 trading session for the week continues in the red with over 420 billion naira wiped off the market cap. Yeah, sell pressure on highly capitalized stocks like Boa Cement, Seplat, Dangote Cement dragged the all-share index down over 1.5%, closing at 48,554 points, below the 49,000 point level and the 50K point level there. Market cap, 26.18 trillion. Let's move over to the activity chart. Let's see how it's looking. We're seeing more volume and value today compared to yesterday. 204 million units of stocks traded at valued at 3.18 billion naira there, with the deals in the red, 3,533 deals, lower than what we had yesterday. Was getting closer to 4,000 yesterday. Let's see what's happening with the gainers counter. NEM Insurance up 10%, closing at 4 naira 40 kobo. FTN Cocoa Processors, that was on the top losers counter yesterday, but it's up 10% today. Honeywell Flour, 2 naira 89 kobo. Let's see what's happening with the losers counter. Boa Foods topping that counter there, 54 naira, down 9.92%. And we see Seplat there, 1,300 naira, down 8.44%. You see Boer Foods and Seplat on the top losers counter. You know the market is going to be down. Well, it's a bloodbath today. 9 stocks gain versus 20 decline as profit-taking continues in this market. And that's the stock market report. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to you.
Well, we don't like those red numbers, but hopefully it will be green before the end of this week. And that's Business News. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. It's back to you, Millicent. Thank you, Anne. President Volodymyr Zelensky has vowed to restore Ukrainian rule over Russia-annexed Crimea, a move he says would help re-establish world law and order. He was addressing an international conference attended by about 40 presidents and prime ministers. This comes as the U.S. warns of fresh Russian attacks in Ukraine. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US State Department has warned Russia is planning to launch fresh attacks against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure and government buildings. It's after President Zelensky warned Russia of a powerful response to any attacks timed to coincide with Ukraine's Independence Day tomorrow.
Zupełnie nie zdają sobie sprawy, co to znaczy.
He was speaking at a news conference during a visit by Poland's President, Andrzej Duda, who showed his support to Ukraine, saying they were fighting in defense of the integrity of the Ukrainian state. A memorial service for the journalist Daria Dugina, who was killed in a car bomb blast on Saturday, has been held in Moscow. Her father, Alexander Dugin, a prominent Russian ultranationalist, paid tribute to her, saying she died for the people, she died for Russia. He went on to call for victory over Ukraine. Foreign Secretary Sergei Lavrov said this was a barbaric crime for which there can be no forgiveness. Ukrainian officials have ridiculed Russia's accusation that its special services were behind the killing, which saw her car blow up on the outskirts of Moscow. Malaysia's former Prime Minister Najib Razak has been sent to jail to begin serving a 12-year sentence after the top court rejected his appeal. Here seen greeting his supporters outside the court, the 69-year-old's charges relate to a corruption scandal involving state-owned wealth fund One Malaysia Development, Berhad. He was convicted in July 2020, but had been out on bail during the appeal. The court also denied Najib's request to delay his sentence. He has continued to deny any wrongdoing. The northern section of the grain silos damaged 2 years ago by a blast at the Beirut port have collapsed after warnings the structure was leaning too far to stay up. The crash sent a cloud of brown-grey dust billowing over the waterfront. There were no immediate reports of any injuries. The huge explosion at the port on August 4th, 2020 killed more than 220 people and gutted the northern section of the grain silos, leaving wheat and corn spilling out into the sun. Recently, a fire had been smouldering in the silos for weeks, which officials said was the result of summer heat igniting fermenting grain left rotting. South Korea has conducted an anti-terror drill simulating explosions and fires at a shopping mall as part of the country's annual Ulchi civil defense drills. The Ulchi civil defense drills, which are held from August the 22nd to the 25th, aim to check the country's crisis management and emergency preparedness amid North Korea's recent missile threats. About 70 personnel from military, police, fire station and local government, as well as citizens, participated in the drill. People were seen escaping from the shopping mall while firefighters scaled a building to rescue people inside and soldiers defused a mock bomb. Angola's presidential candidates have wrapped up a month-long campaign before the country heads to the polls on Wednesday. It is likely to be the tightest election since the first multi-party election in 1992. The MPLA, led by João Lourenço, since 2017 has governed Africa's second biggest oil producer since independence from Portugal in 1975. But long-time opposition party UNITA is stronger than ever as anger grows at government failures to convert vast oil wealth into better living conditions. And finally, footage has emerged of the moment a super yacht completely sank into the Mediterranean Sea. The 40-metre vessel got into difficulty about 15 kilometres off the Catanzaro Marina in Italy. The Italian Coast Guard rescued all 9 people on board, 4 passengers and 5 crew, which was heading from Gallipoli to Milazzo when it sank. The reason behind the sinking is still being investigated. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Let's now take a look at some sports news. President Muhammadu Buhari has declared that football remains the #1 sport in the country and a national asset. Therefore, his administration will resist any attempt to undermine its development. The president made the pledge in Abuja while receiving the 10-year football development master plan submitted by the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development. Sunday Dare, the president directed the ministry and the Nigeria Football Federation to commence its implementation in phases within the fine lines of relevant sections of the Nigerian laws on sports development and the statutes of FIFA.
This government is interested in developing a football culture that will accommodate football best practices and that will help the nation to lay a solid foundation for our domestic football. Put in place professionally and efficiently run leagues, entrench a consistent and stable football calendar, and create a value chain which will boost the sports ecosystem. Achieving this will guarantee desired progress in continental and international competitions.
Speaking there, President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, United States women's national team coach Vlatko Andonovski has released a 23-player squad for next month's friendlies against Nigeria's Super Falcons. All the 23 players are part of the team that helped the USA win the 2022 CONCACAF Women's Championship in Mexico, including midfielder Sam Kofi, who replaced injured forward Ashley Hatch after the group stage of the competition. The U.S. qualified for its 9th consecutive World Cup following its second group match at the CONCACAF Championship. The Americans went on to defeat Canada in the championship game to earn a place at the Paris 2024 Olympics. The first match is slated for September the 3rd at the Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City, while the second match is on September the 6th at the Audi Field in Washington. And Ukraine has launched its new football season despite Russia's ongoing invasion in an apparent attempt to give a morale boost to the war-ravaged nation. In the first match of the Ukrainian Premier League, Shakhtar Donetsk drew goalless with Metalist 1925 at the Olympijski Stadium in Kiev. In an emotional pre-match ceremony, the players of both teams and the referees entered the pitch wrapped in Ukrainian flags and unfurled a banner that read, "We are of the same courage." After a minute of silence in memory of Ukrainians who died as a result of the Russian invasion, the first symbolic kick of the ball was made by a Ukrainian soldier. Matches will be held without spectators due to security reasons. Indeed, that's a courageous act. But that's a wrap on sports news. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to Millicent.
Thank you, Victor. Also, as they mark their Independence Day tomorrow. And the main news again. Nigeria and the United States of America today signed an agreement for the repatriation of fresh $23.4 million Abacha loot. This came after over 2 decades after the death of General Sani Abacha. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.